Hey everyone, Elizabeth here. Today I want to reference an article that I shared in my feed earlier today. It's about this article in USA Today talking about how Americans now are spending or committing to an average new car loan monthly payment of $551 a month. Not only that, $551 a month for a 69-month loan period. This is the average, right? There's not actually, as far as I know, there's not actually a 69-month loan on the market, but this is the average. Average American is signing a loan to buy a new car, $551 a month for 69 months at the current, this kills me, the current average interest rate is 6.19%. So that is, it's not the median price, which, let's not get into math of it right now. That's the average price for what Americans are signing, paying for their cars right now. Let's just, God, sorry. I'm still new at this thing, and I'm not supposed to say I'm nervous, but I'm nervous. So anyway, let's talk about this. There's so many things here to pick apart, and I could go on then for a long time, but I'm not going to. Okay, where do we start? $551 a month. That's just the car payment. The added expenses here are just shocking to me. Car payment is just one of many expenses of buying a car, right? A newer, bigger car is going to cost more money to insure. There are more SUVs on the road. I mean, one of the reasons this price is so high is because so many people are going into SUVs. Much to my shame, and yet I really miss it. I have owned an SUV before. Let me tell you, the tires on an SUV are way more expensive than tires on a car. So you've got a bigger payment. You're paying more for insurance. Your tires are more expensive. You still have the maintenance to pay on it. Insurance you have your insurance deductible, right? So not only is your insurance higher, but then in order to keep that price reasonable, a lot of people will go with a higher deductible, which means that you have to have a bigger pile of money in case something happens to the car. So just overall, the cost of maintaining a big car is more. The cost of insuring and taking care of a new car is more expensive than insuring an older car. And these loans are just shocking to me. The amount, 551, I mean, that's a lot of money. But we're not going to get into that right now. I mean, because it's relative, right? $551 is $551. That's higher than ever before, right? And that's one of the points of the article, is that monthly payments are higher now than in history. But this $551, let's leave it out of the conversation right now as to whether or not that's how that fits into the monthly budget, because we're going there in a second. But the 69-month term loan is, I want to talk about just for a second, because 69 months, that's 5 years and 9 months. That's 5 years and 9 months before a car is paid off. Now, especially since the recession, people are holding on to their cars a lot longer than they used to. But still, this is a car that you will have a loan on, that you have to make payments on for 5 years and 9 months. Which, look, that's just a long time. That's a long time for a what was once a new car to now be a used car. When you're finally finished paying off that loan, how close are you to needing a new car at $551 a month for this term? And then what will it be the next time you have to buy a car? That's just, so I'm now one of these people who says never ever buy a new car. And just to be clear, we're talking about new car sales here. We're not talking about used cars or all car sales, new car sales. So that is, I'm not in the camp that says never ever ever buy a new car, because I buy new cars. We can go into that some other time. If you have a question about that, you can, I've got my fancy little things here. You can hit me up on Twitter, or you can send me an email. So here's my email address. Okay, so if you want to talk about, argue about, ask me about, you want me to talk later, some other time about whether or not you should buy a new car or used car, or you want to know my rationalizations for buying new cars, that's fine. But that's not what we're talking about today. So these are new cars. We're talking about new cars. We're talking about how much people are committing to each month, and the interest rate, 6.19%, because interest rates are finally going up again, which is, if you're earning interest, that's a good thing. If you're paying interest, which people are much more likely to do, if you're paying interest, rising interest rates is not good. And this term, right? So we're talking about the monthly price, the interest rate, and how long these new car loan terms are. Now, I'm old enough that these new terms, longer term loans, were really shocking to me. Back in the day, I mean, a standard car loan was 4 years. You paid a car off in 4 years. Yes, cars last longer now than they used to. And people, especially since the recession, people are holding on to their cars longer than they used to. But still, if you take 6 years to pay off a car loan, that gives you no breathing room, really, before you go. Even if you're going to own the car longer than 6 years, you still have a 6-year-old car. And at some point, cars need more maintenance, right? They have mileage on them. At this point, you're replacing timing belts or timing chains. That's an expensive repair. You're looking at, you're looking at the 100,000 mile plus area here, and that's, even though that's not that unusual anymore for a car, it's still an older car. So by the time you're done paying off this new car, my point is, it is absolutely no longer a new car. So you're looking at probably higher maintenance costs, and you're looking at when are we going to need a new car by the time this term is paid off. So the other half of that's the math, that's the shocking numbers. I think it's important to pay attention to where the market's going. I think the numbers are important. But that's the first half of what I want to talk about, because I think it's individual, right? I mean, $551 in and of itself, there's nothing wrong with that. And 6.19% interest, I mean, that's the average again. So that's determined by what your credit score is, and so that's not what everybody's paying. But I wouldn't want to have to pay 6.19% interest on something. That would be an unfortunate interest rate. I know that many people pay higher interest rates than that. That's the higher, the more unfortunate that is. That's the numbers, right? But there's nothing, even with that, there's nothing that's inherently wrong with having a car payment that's $550 a month. There's nothing inherently wrong with paying interest on a car loan. Yeah, you know, in a practical world, most of us pay interest on a car loan when we buy a car. So there's nothing inherently wrong with that. I guess there's nothing inherently wrong with having a 69 or 72 month car loan, although I find that troublesome. Not because it's a the actuarial part of it, just the facts, right? The facts. If you're taking 5 or 6 years to pay off a loan, just the facts are that you have a 5 or 6 year old car by the time you finish paying off that loan. I do find that problematic. But again, there's nothing really, truly, inherently awful, wrong, evil about that. It depends on the situation. But let's go back. What I want to look at is, why are people making these decisions, and what's the decision-making process? So the other part of this article that I found interesting was, of course, it's a clickbaity thing. And if you go, I have the link in my the article that I shared. If you want to go read the article, do so. Because I'm just picking out the parts of it that I want to talk about, and they talk about other stuff. But and it's kind of clickbaity, right? I mean, there's lots of ads, so be aware of that. There's lots of ads, and the title is ridiculous. But their premise is partially ridiculous, because what they talk about is the reason that people are paying this much now for cars. That suddenly, this is in their headline, right? Suddenly Americans are paying $550 a month for a car, which is just patently ridiculous. That's total clickbait title. But then they go on and they connect this willingness to pay $550. So this willingness to pay more than ever for a car payment. They connect that with this what they call the Netflix model, the subscription model thinking. So they blame it all on Netflix. That Netflix has trained us all to think in terms of a monthly subscription fee, which I find patently ridiculous. People have been making monthly payments on their mortgages and their car loans for a long time. I won't say for forever, but in my life, for my lifetime, forever, people have been doing this. So this idea that people are looking at a monthly loan payment as this new, Netflix induced subscription model thinking, that's silly or stupid, or however you want to look at it. It's patently ridiculous. People have been, this whole idea of a monthly payment has been going on for a long time, but that doesn't totally excuse it. And so for me, it comes down to one of my pithyisms. I'm here really, okay, let's get down to it. I am here to talk to you about one of my favorite pithyisms, which is, don't ask, can I afford this? This is the wrong question. We want to reframe this can I afford it question. I would like to wipe the word afford out of our vocabulary completely. We should never, ever, ever think in terms of what can I afford? What can we afford? Can we afford it? I would like to reframe this sentiment. And the question becomes, is this how I choose to spend my money? This is the question that when we're committing to a mortgage payment or a car loan payment or a Netflix subscription or Hulu or HBO or Sirius or Spotify, right? All of our monthly subscriptions now. The question, if you find yourself asking, can I afford this? Please stop. Reframe this question for yourself. First of all, afford is it's a poverty consciousness question. It's coming from a place of constriction. It's coming from a place of I don't know. Where is it coming from? It's coming from a place of smallness. It's coming from a place of poverty. Can I afford this? Which means, can I squeeze this payment into my take-home pay, my monthly take-home pay, and not, right? It doesn't fit. If we're renting or we have a mortgage payment and we have a car payment, does it fit? Or am I spending more than what I earn every month? That is what afford means. And that's important, of course, right? I mean, we can't spend more every month than what we earn. That's just, that is, the quick way. That is the quick way to bankruptcy. But there's, getting just the answer of, yes, there's money left over. Yes doesn't mean that it should be okay. It doesn't green light a project. It doesn't green light, should I sign up for this new subscription? Because yes, I can subscribe to this and this and this, or yes, I can pay my rent and make this car payment and have some money left over from my paycheck every month. That just because that answer is yes doesn't mean that, the afford is there, you're just asking the wrong question. It's just so whether the answer is yes or no, it's the wrong question. The question, really, I encourage all of us to change this question to, is this how I choose to spend my money? Because let's take the car again, right? $550 a month. That works out to, I wrote it down here, $38,000. Just over, a tad over $38,000. So $38,000. Is this how I choose to spend this $38,000? We have to look at the entire picture. If we break it into just $550 a month, and then we check and see, can I pay my rent and make my car payment and have some money left over at the end of the month? That's not looking at the full, that's not looking at the full question, at the full impact of this decision that we're trying to make. Because if we look at it as $38,000, that's a much bigger, it's a much bigger number, right? But because it's a much bigger number, it's the real number, and by looking at it, we can look at the bigger picture, and the bigger picture is important. So $38,000, is that how I choose to spend that money? Over time, that's how much you will be spending. And so and that comes into this concept of, it's an economics concept that I love. Personally, I geek out over this. It's opportunity cost. And it just is the cost of what are we giving up by making one choice. The idea is that every choice, there are at least two options, and opportunity cost really narrows it down to the two best options. So if we're talking about buying a car, the two options are, do I buy it or don't I buy it? Although realistically, that's not what we're asking, right? Because if we're buying a new car, it's do I buy this car or do I buy that car? But to pull back from the weeds, we're talking about opportunity cost. And so when we ask ourselves, is this how I choose to spend my money? The implication there is we have choices. And if we don't spend it here, then there's something else that we can choose to do with it later on, right? There's something else that money could do later on if we don't choose to spend it now. And so that's what I'm hoping will happen in reframing this question. To go back to mindset, words matter. That's the core of everything that I do. Words are important because they create the thoughts and emotions that drive our decision making. And so how we talk to ourselves, how we frame these questions, the words that we use definitely matter in how then we look at the question and what drives the decision-making process. So, as I said, can I afford it comes from a poverty consciousness place. What afford does is it puts us in a position of power. It comes from a position of empowerment. We are in control. We are the ones making the decision. It's not a matter of can I afford it? Is this how I choose to spend this $38,000? If the answer is yes, then go for it, right? I don't believe there should be judgment around this. If it's as long as you're not spending $38,000, there's no way that you have or realistically will make over time. But there are other things that could be done with the same $38,000. And if we're faced with buying a $38,000 car or a $28,000 car, right, then there's $10,000 difference in there that we can choose to do something else with. If we don't buy the car with it, then eventually we'll be able to do something else with it. And so that's where this question comes from. This is, okay, it's your money, right? Because if you're asking yourself the afford question, then, and you say, yes, I can afford it, and you sign on the dotted line, then you are committing, you are saying, okay, I have, over time, $38,000 to spend on a car. So you are in a place that you can say, you can ask the question instead, is this how I choose to spend this money? And even if you don't have the $38,000 in the bank right now, which is why you're taking out a loan at 6.19%, you will, the plan is that eventually over time you will earn $38,000 and that money will all be put toward the car. So the plan is that eventually over time in increments you will have in your possession $38,000, right? It has to come into your possession so that it can leave your possession in the form of this monthly car payment. So it's not a question of whether you have the money, because by signing the loan, you're saying that yes, you will have the money. You intend to, over time, earn $38,000 that you then spend on a car. So the question is, really from this empowerment, is that how you choose to spend that $38,000? And it's just a mindset shift. It's by changing our language, we're changing our mindset. Instead of saying, can I afford this? You're asking, is this how I want to spend this money? And like I said, there's no judgment here. I don't have anything against $38,000 cars. I don't have anything against $28,000 cars. I don't have anything against any car in particular. That's not the point, right? It could be something else. It could be, whatever. You can ask yourself the same question when you go to the grocery store and you're looking at, I don't know, that bag of vine-ripened tomatoes, or the Haagen-Dazs ice cream. It's not a matter of, can I afford this? It's a question of, is this how I choose to spend my money? So whether you're spending 38 cents or $38,000, that is the question to be asking yourself, because that money can only be spent once. And if you don't spend it on this thing at this time, it can be used for a different purpose later on. So you're asking, is this how I want to spend this money? And I find it very empowering. I have to say, this is one of my favorite pithyisms because it was one of the first. This question, shifting this, reframing this question, was like the starting point for me. It's when everything really started to click for me. in as far as personal finance and managing my money and budgeting and that kind of thing, is really asking myself, moving from that, I have a choice here. This is my decision. This is my money to do something with, and is this how I choose to spend it? And so I hope that you play around with this question and see if it's as empowering for you as it was for me. And if you have a car payment that you're currently paying that is anywhere in the neighborhood of $550 a month, then please understand that I'm not judging that, right? I'm not judging you. I do hope that you maybe asked yourself, is this how I choose to spend my money? And the answer was yes, and you feel really good about it every time you send in the car payment, reaffirming that yes, this is what I decided to do with this money. And I hope you're enjoying your car, because that's fabulous. I know that feeling. If you have a car payment that you didn't ask yourself, is this how I choose to spend my money? If you asked yourself the question of, can I afford it? And it was questionable, right? Whether there was you're kind of squeaking by, or it was a little bit more, you planned that it would be easier to afford that payment, over the next year or 2 years, or since the term of the loan is so long, maybe it was over the term of 5 years. I hope that you're not locked. My point is, I hope you're not locked into a car payment that is that's hurting you, that you're regretting. So really the point is, again, whether you're spending 38 cents or $38,000 or $380,000, play with this idea of wiping afford out of your language and switching to this empowered question of, is this how I choose to spend this amount of money? So that's Elizabeth. Elizabeth out. I hope you guys all have a fabulous weekend. And please send me your comments. Again, Twitter is, I got my, there we go. I got my, my Twitter handle. Give me a shout on Twitter. Or if you're not, if you don't tweet, then send me an email, or you can comment below this with the article that I sent out, or you can comment below this Facebook Live. So have a great weekend. See y'all next time. Bye. Bye. If I knew how to turn this thing off, there we go. See ya.